Okay, cool. Yeah, man. It's good to see you here, and I think next hour is gonna be awesome, full of info for all those singers who are struggling and trying to find their way. And I was thinking about our conversation, and I knew like there are a lot of things, and while I was doing my classes, I had my notes, and I was like, okay, we're gonna talk about this and like and this and this and this and this and this. So that's a
Yeah,
really like short list
great.
because we can do it like 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start from the beginning. Tell me, please, about how you were starting out, like your influences and like your journey, how it begins.
So I started out singing in um, my room while I was still living with my parents, and I didn't want to be heard. So my first singing experience was trying to make very gritty and chessy grunge and hard rock sounds as quietly as possible. So I
Oh.
was there like "Ah!" doing this all the time, like
Mm-hmm.
speech volume or even lower,
Okay.
which I think is not a very intuitive thing to people who actually don't have a problem with being heard. Like people who associate chesty sounds with a lot of volume and you know just
Mm-hmm.
extroversion.
Mm-hmm.
To them, that kind of weightlifty strategy that I unconsciously kind of practiced in the beginning. Um, it's not something that they find easy to get, and that was my habit for a long time. And it's one of the reasons why I can still, you know, do that kind of thing in wah and distortion and ah and in classical sounds.
Kind of a salva approach, a bit of
Yes, it
hold
is
back and
totally Valsalva. Yeah.
cool,
And
cool.
I called it hypercompression in my 2020 series, so now that's the
Mm-hmm.
term that's stuck with me. Valsalva is just
Cool.
as accurate.
Yep.
And only later, uh, through experimenting with more twang and cry, these kinds of
Mm-hmm.
sounds,
Mm-hmm.
I found out that, oh, actually, I don't need to have the Valsalva aspect in my singing in order to be chesty, in order to reach high notes, and so on. And that was like 5 or 6 or 7 years into my singing journey, while I had
Mm-hmm.
already learned like these kinds of Valsalva based screams, a bit of like very, very basic false chords. It didn't
Mm-hmm.
sound great at that time. I still have recordings, and they're not really tolerable. But it's
Mm-hmm.
quite interesting to see how a lot of the basics were already there. And that was like at age 17. Okay.
Okay.
So like I started at 11, 12, something like that. And I
Cool.
never had lessons until I started studying to become a teacher for music and English. And
Mm-hmm.
my main course in the music department was popular singing. And
Okay.
well, they called it popular singing. It was mostly jazz.
Okay.
And I, of course, was a rock guy. So I was
Much
hoping to
lighter.
sing some pop stuff, but got some jazz stuff, but actually wanted to sing rock stuff. Um, yeah, so that
Uh-huh.
was my first actual lessons, and they were Estil based. So that was also
Okay.
my the first kind of model that I was subjected to, and I found it quite interesting because the logic of, oh well, you have this and that, and you can try to isolate them, and then if you put them together, you get different sound qualities. Um, that actually brought me into the rabbit hole of researching all
Cool.
the internet, YouTube, even then like academia and ResearchGate and blah blah blah, um, for myself. And I actually started teaching 2 years after I had my first lessons. I
That's cool.
started I started very, very cheap. And I didn't think this would become my profession. I just did it, on the side, because I was like, oh, that's interesting. I want to do the same.
But bro, this thing, the more you're
Yeah.
teaching, the more you're learning. That's
Yeah.
so
Yeah, 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 yeah.
cool in this thing.
And
Yeah.
so this was about 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say the biggest jumps in my own vocal journey, like the most increase in quality of my own singing and versatility and like efficiency. I could always make some cool sounds, but like actually becoming a good singer,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that has happened actually in the last 6 years. And if you listen to like the first singing on my YouTube channel from 2020,
Mm-hmm.
I really have to cringe when I listen to that. And it's only 5 years ago. It's not a long time,
Yeah.
but it's yeah, it's quite interesting how as you say, teaching improves your singing, and singing improves your teaching. And so
Yes.
that's kind of my
Yeah.
vocal journey. I've taken a lot of lessons outside of uni too, with many different people. So I just take from everywhere. I took a lot from Complete Vocal Technique. I've done two little like level 1 and 2 Estil courses and the
Mm-hmm.
figure proficiency, but also classical lessons and screaming lessons and throat singing lessons and all that.
Cool.
And it all comes together now. But I would say in my overall approach to singing and teaching, I'm still a self-taught. Because
And
even
that's
when I
cool.
go to a lesson, I decide what the teacher will tell me because I decide who the teacher is. So it's still kind of like teaching yourself how to draw by getting the opinion of 10 different artists. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And the
yeah.
more problems you had, that's the common stuff. Because when we have like a teacher who was incredibly cool skill singer at the beginning, he knows like just create the sound, just like like open, yeah, and just it should go out.
Yeah,
And
why can
if
you
it's like
not do it? I already sang the high C for you 3 times.
yeah, like maybe something's wrong with you if you can do it like 3 lessons. Maybe like I know something is happening here. And now this like I call this more esoteric way of teaching. Like like relax, just try to feel it. Like it's like when you're trying to learn how to drive a motorbike or a car. It's stupid. Imagine like you're sitting in your car and like and your teacher like just relax, like think like your vehicle is moving and just feel it. Never ever is gonna
Yeah.
happen like that until like you have the clutch, you need to learn the biting point. Basically it's all the same, like the gas pedal, the fuel injection, the transmission, that
Mhm.
like it's completely the same. And like the gear ratio, the
Yeah.
like layers of the faults internal. But those who were bad at singing and they were overcoming all those problems, like trying here, no, trying here, maybe like here, okay, now it's working. And you have this backpack, and when you're teaching somebody and you're like, okay, it's not working, this, no, okay, this maybe this, and like 17th, ding, and you have this.
Yep.
So it's
Yep.
always like that. So like being a really cool singer is not the same as being a really cool teacher, and vice versa. Like
Yeah. And what I notice is also some of my students sing much better than I do, and they specifically sing a certain style much
exactly,
better. So it's
yes.
like I know so many singers who are so great at riffing, and I'm like I'm practicing this because yeah, sometimes you go and I'm trying to do all these things, and then when I feel like oh this was a really good take, I had all the agility there, and then I look at some of my students or colleagues, and I'm like oh no, fuck it, I'm gonna I'm quitting. Um, that
Exactly.
happens a lot, but interestingly, I think what is my strength is because of this journey is I don't do anything perfectly, but I do a lot of things decently.
Bro, I feel you. I
Yeah,
feel you really good because yeah, it's the
working
same thing.
into this direction rather than this direction.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's better for a teacher than maybe for a performer.
Yes,
But yeah, I'm very happy with this profession. I think it's a great job
man.
that we're.
Every single time I think, like especially here in Ukraine, like the war is going on and stuff like that. Have those missiles. And each time I'm like, oh, fuck, like what's going on here? And I'm like, just thanks God, I can do this for a living. Like I'm a big fan of like not only singing, the voice as a instrument, whatever genre and style, doesn't matter. And like I'm thinking, like thanks God for that, because that's it keeping me sane. And yeah. Bro, let's talk about okay, the begin the warm up. That's a really important thing, and I want you to ask you about it because you know recently I had an interview with a good friend of mine, Alessandro Del Vecchio. He's a great singer, also teacher, and great musician. And he was working with a lot of my heroes like Glenn Hughes, Russell Allen from Symphonix, and Jorn Lund. A lot of those guys
Great.
who are like CDs and vinyls and stuff like that. And you know, we are like talking. And he was like, "Okay, with Glenn Hughes," and I like, "Wait, hold on a second. This guy is a special thing." And I always thought like Glenn Hughes in particular knows all those things because so dynamic. Like the range is huge. I've been to his concert here in Kiev like for like 4 years ago. It was incredible. At his age, all the high notes, the connection, the grit, like everything. And he was like, you know, man, he doesn't know at all what he's doing. It's all intuitive, and he called this like a trumpet voice, like. And when you are talking about internode, mother thyroid tilt, like medium layer, it completely. That was the one thing, and I was like, whoa. But the second thing, we were talking about the warm up, and he's like, you know what? All these guys, and he was started from Ronnie James Dio. He was saying, I was working as a monitor engineer. It was Monsters of Rock, like 96 or something like that. And he was like, the intro is going on, the guys are playing from Dio band, and Ronnie James Dio is like doing this, and like the next second he's like, you know, like B flat four, bam.
Yep.
And he was like, what's going on? After that, he was asking Dio like, you're not warming up at all? And he was like, I shouldn't. I know exactly the sound I need. So
Mm.
I'm just jumping into this position. And I was like, okay, maybe that's like one guy. And after that, he's saying, Jorn Lund, no warm up. I was tracking him like he's like coming into the studio, bam, the first second, 3 takes down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Glenn Hughes, the same thing. Russell Allen from Symphonix, the same. And you know, if for example we are talking about like Dave Gahan or those kind of guys, more speech like low, but it's like starting from high C, the very first pitch, and everything is going there. And I was like, come on, man, is it like next 3 days? I was laying in my bed when I'm like trying to sleep, and I was thinking about this. I couldn't find the answer. What do you think about it?
So whenever students ask me what warm-up routine I recommend for them, I say none. And then usually we have a discussion because the students then argue in favor of warm-up routines. They're like, but we need to warm up. It's like we cannot just start right away. I'm like, why not? And then interestingly, I have tried to observe my own vocal behavior throughout the day more because I don't do warm-ups really. I do make a lot of noises though. So when I wake up, usually my voice is half an octave lower. I'm a bass baritone in the mornings because
Mm-hmm.
of acid reflux and
Oh yeah,
a
yeah.
house mite dust allergy and probably other stuff that I haven't untangled yet. So I actually don't sing right in the mornings, or I think I don't sing. I don't teach and so on. But actually, I think if you recorded me throughout the day, I would be like,
But that's a warm, bro. Every single like that's the like higher. That's this layer of the fold. This type of compression. So basically, you're warming up.
I
You're not
that's
quiet.
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I've had this kind of conversation with lots of students, and I was like, I don't have this kind of routine where I start like, then whatever, ooh, going from thinner
Mm-hmm.
to thicker and more close to more open. I know all the theory behind that, like what makes a good warm up according to the functional method and blah blah blah. And I never did that, but what I did notice is I use my voice, I do stretch, I do talk, of course, and move, and I do notice that as soon as the reflux and allergies swellings have gone away, um yes, I can sing without preparing anything, but that does not mean I haven't done anything so far. And it would actually be very interesting for me to try out no humming, no talking, just waiting for 5 hours and then singing right away and seeing if there's any difference. Obviously, it
Exactly.
would also be interesting to get rid of the fucking reflux and everything.
Oh, that's the number one, because you can't deal with it. But when
Mhm.
you're saying about you're doing different noises, it's not only about the speech, like like one octave. You're doing like and high and mid and low and grit and
Yeah.
no grit and fry and creak and so like those versatile thing is always keeping the ring going. You know what I mean? Like it's better to do like always this thing rather
Mhm.
than like be silent for a week and like for example with the vestibular folds and stuff like that, every single time when I have students like day by day like screaming stuff like that, it's taking me like 2 3 minutes, bam 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 bam, here we go. But as
Mhm.
soon as they are on tour and I have more like clean and I'm like not doing those sounds for like 2 weeks or three
Mhm.
weeks I need kind of 10 minutes just to like
Yeah.
step by step. First, it's like breathing out, like, and then it's going
Yeah.
wrong
Sure.
because like at the beginning we all need to squeeze, but it's not a big deal. You need to like let go and make it rumble. So
I think
better every day rather than like once.
sure, sure. Well, and muscle memory is an interesting thing. If you do good stuff a lot, your body remembers good stuff. If you do bad stuff a lot, your body remembers bad stuff. If you don't do anything, your body does not remember anything. And it's like
And
I
like replacing, like it's
sure.
so hard to replace old muscle memory
Yes.
when someone's new is going for the teaching and learning rather
This
than from a blank list.
Yeah, like it seems like it's much harder to teach the body good stuff than bad stuff.
Yeah.
But um what I also say a lot to my students, I even said it twice today actually, is your body does not remember what you want to do. Like you're practicing, I want to keep my larynx stable, whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
then your larynx goes up, and you're like, oh, fuck, no, let's try once again. And your larynx goes up again, and you do that for 20,000 times.
Yeah.
I want to keep my larynx in a stable position. Well, what you actually practiced is raising the larynx. Now, I'm not against raising the larynx at all. This is just an example, but
Yeah, yeah, I understand.
your intentions don't matter to your body because your body is stupid. Your body remembers what you did.
Yeah,
So if you notice
sure.
your exercise is not doing for you what you expect out of it, maybe after 2 or 3 attempts and maybe some variations, let's try with the movement and blah blah blah. But if it doesn't work, stop it until you have a better idea.
100%, because it can take you for like 2 3 years even doing completely the same and trying like find the mixed voice like
Yeah.
something so mysterious like a ghost which
Yeah.
is like doesn't exist actually because that's the
Mhm.
same but like okay, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, next, top vocal problems or voice problems. What do you think about it?
Well, my personal struggles or
I mean, overall, starting from you and the common stuff, your students, singers, friends,
okay, yeah,
singing
yeah.
friends.
So the stuff I see most often.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let me start off like this. Um I see more often singers that are afraid to use full chest voice and to be loud and to
Oh
go for
my.
intense things and commit to them. Then I see people who overpush. Definitely overpushing or overpressing, over squeezing. Like those all mean different things to me. Like the pushing is the pressing is the squeezing is You know,
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
they
Mm-hmm.
exist, and that's like doing too much. I more often encounter people who have perfectly healthy voices but cannot get the sounds they want because they've built their little boxes of this is comfortable, this is definitely healthy and not risky at all, and then they cannot get out of that. And maybe even
All
teachers have told them like,
exactly the
don't raise your
industry
larynx,
of
don't
vocal coaching.
flab, and so
Yes.
on. And it's like
Yeah.
I totally get why teachers would tell you you shouldn't have to raise the larynx super dramatically to go up. You shouldn't have to open the vowel and blah blah blah. I get that. But let's put it like this. I have more students with voice problems that come from a speech level background
Agree.
than
100%.
students that come from a yelling background. Both
Exactly.
both don't have the full picture, but it's much easier to tell someone to do less. Actually, I know a lot of people would disagree about this uh, because they say, well, it's harder to undo something than to do something. But in my experience as a teacher, maybe I'm just better at teaching this. But um, while it's counterintuitive for someone who associates singing with doing a lot
Mm-hmm.
to do less, and while there might be also some mental blockages against doing less, like this is not really singing, this is just humming or whatever. Um, Somehow these problems I can solve faster than most of the times, and of course the students can solve them. We're working together, and they're doing most of the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then with people who have a great ah smooth sound and it works too well for them to actually get out of it, even though they want
Yeah.
to. It's
Mm-hmm.
like I want to do chest voice, but not chest voice.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Or
That's
remember we
harder.
were talking about fake belting, like without
Yeah, yeah,
internoid muscle, like kinda call shout mechanism, but it's more type of
yeah,
kind of BGs and like funk
yeah, yeah,
sound.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And another thing, I agree 100% because this confidence, and you know what, I think it's probably like two reasons. The first one you said about it, like all this singing teaching community, especially the contemporary with amplification bullshit, and like, you know what I mean, you
Mhm.
shouldn't be loud acoustically because the amplification is going to do it for you, but it's completely different sound quality. I mean, the
Yes.
input is completely different. That's the thing. And like, be more quiet, don't be super loud extremely. And that's the big problem. That's always end up in a TNT specialist office, always like that,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
without be completely out, let go, and
Yeah.
like a SPL level upper than 100 decibels, especially for the belting stuff like that. And another thing, it's like since the childhood age, I always, for example, when I'm on the street and I'm always, maybe someone is like, oh, they're screaming, but I like, and okay, the larynx position, the tilting, the okay, Mortier here, the like nasal pharynx, and sometimes it's like, oh, shut up, now you're going home, just another this type of sound, and you're going. After that, they're like locking themselves, and even when they're trying to create loud sound, not super high, in let's say even low mid part of the voice, they just can't. They're like locking yourself because it's gone from this like childhood age.
Yep.
So that's a really big problem, especially
Yeah.
with the loud sounds. I think the healthy voice, even if you're singing something light and soft, should be in your routine and training.
Yeah.
Just like, for example, with the Broadway belt singers, they're practicing a lot of head voice. Let's say, okay, M2 mechanism up
Mm-hmm.
high to
Mm-hmm.
balance their voices. Because if it's only like that, it's like recalibration completely, rather than always belting here, one M2, then practice in a room, balancing with M2. And it's like
Yeah, yeah,
always rather than this. The same here. You can sing light, but you should have this like boomy upper belt TA dominant sound.
yeah. And it's like I have three different thoughts for this. The first thought is and I actually heard this in the Vocal Fry podcast by Nicholas Perna. Um, the differentiation between functional training and task specific training, where sure, if you don't care about head voice and you only want to do da 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 da, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
folk punk singers don't
Okay,
really
okay.
need a lot of head voice. Does that mean we never train it? No. I definitely check on head voice, and if it works decently well, it doesn't have to be perfectly coordinated, it doesn't have to be extremely high range. But
Mm-hmm.
if it works well, I'm satisfied. And when we only focus on whatever they want, that's task
Yeah,
specific. But that does not mean that if their falsetto is non-existent, or if it's
exactly.
extremely it's extremely pushy like that, that I won't work at that, because I know that they'll have similar problems or related problems in the stuff that they want to do, even if they don't need that sound. Um, and the functional training, I think, will just have a slightly different ratio in terms of, well, we do everything, and then in the second half of the lesson we use one of these sounds in that. But then we
Mm-hmm.
don't always do the same thing each week, maybe. And I tend to be more of the task specific teacher, because people come to me not usually for several years. I have a couple of people that do that, but even then it's not every week.
Mm-hmm.
um and most of the times they come to me for 5 lessons, sometimes only
Okay,
one, and then maybe another and another, because they want to solve a very specific problem, ideally very quickly.
cool.
And apparently it works well enough for me to do this profession. But uh while I'm more on the task specific side, probably in 70-80% of the cases of my teaching, I make sure that task specific does not mean I never check on other functions. The root of my teaching is functional, by which I don't mean like specifically Cornelius Reed. I think Essel
Mm-hmm.
and CPT and your method, they're all functional in the sense
Yep.
that they care about how stuff works, not just how it sounds and is it the right sound yet or not yet. Do better because it doesn't sound good yet.
Again,
I
about the vehicle,
Yeah,
even if you have really solid engine, but if the fuel pump is not working, just forget about it. It's not gonna
yeah,
work. So yeah, the voice is not only here and there, it's the whole instrument. And
yeah,
it's like a mechanical watch, you know?
yeah,
You should, if we you should like change something, first of all, just everything little pieces. We are checking everything, and
mhm,
then when we are putting all the stuff together, it's beginning to work. That's cool.
yeah.
Okay,
I
next.
just the
Yeah.
the other two little thoughts about this. I think the reason that a lot of people are afraid of chest voice is that they have bad chest voice experience, and more
Yeah.
so chest voice uh as something that they experience as maybe a strainy or tiring, or even well, let's say not damaging, but leaving them hoarse,
Okay.
which can totally happen, of course. Then in head voice, it can also happen in head voice. Actually, for me, like imitating classical tenors is much less tiring to me than imitating classical sopranos. Maybe
So,
just because I'm
yeah.
trying too high,
Understood.
but for most people, it's the other way around. They have bad chest voice experience more than they have bad head voice or even mix experience. And I think this comes from the idea that in order to have more sound, you have to put in more effort, which is not always the case. You
Yes.
have to put in more pressure, but the pressure is not always something that you feel, or what you feel as pressure does not always
Yeah.
correspond to, if we measure
Yeah.
pop, 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 subclonic pressure into a device.
Yeah.
That's not that. And I think as soon as we have good resonance tuning, as soon as we have good adduction, whether we get it just from vocal folds themselves or whether something helps, as soon as we have those two, singers are so often so surprised at how little perceived effort it takes to make
Exactly.
high pressure and high intensity sounds. And if they hadn't had that experience yet, I totally get why they would be afraid of chest voice and why they would be repulsed if I say, well, I do a lot of yelling with my students, and they're like, yeah, but that's not a good idea. Even if they can do it healthily in your lesson, they might not get it healthily alone. Well, how should they get it alone if we don't practice it?
Exactly. You should open them at the beginning.
Yeah,
Open them and put them out from this tiny
yeah.
little,
Box.
thing. And okay, if you're
And the
talking
third,
about the
sorry,
chest voice,
the
yeah,
third thing,
yes. Okay. Yep.
I have to structure my brain, otherwise it explodes.
Same thing.
Thanks for those four letters. Was it ACDC, ACAB? Oh no, ADHD. That's what it was. So being loud is not only important in unamplified singing, it is also important in amplified singing for the reasons that you mentioned. There's a difference in sound quality, but also specifically if you are on a small stage with loud drums, loud guitar amplifiers,
Yeah.
even loud audience, actually. So if you're in a rock band, basically, if you are quieter than the rest of the
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
ambience into a microphone, you cannot be mixed. There will be
Yeah.
feedback
Yeah.
before we
Sure.
start hearing you. And actually,
Feedback and yeah.
I recommend watching the Rockvox video on this
Mm,
topic, which goes through these specifics in more detail, and demonstrates also like the difference in sound quality between like hitting a snare drum softly versus harshly. Of course, you can normalize the volumes, but it will never be the same sound. So,
quality is different
yep,
completely.
yep.
Cool. And okay, you were talking about the chest voice, so we are jumping slightly more towards this thing because a lot of the times we're calling this chest voice, but again, it's more esoteric because the sympathetic vibrations, everyone's
Sure.
different, and like, you know what I mean? We
Yeah.
are talking about M1 because that's more about vibratory pattern and it's more or less esoteric for me. That's why I usually how I'm thinking about this, it's more towards this sound. And this experience you were talking about, again, the problem was there was no mechanical tuning of first the vibratory pattern, the adduction, second the upper vocal tract, like the dorsum of the tongue, the root of the tongue, and like the frequencies, harmonics, formants, smaller spaces for higher frequencies when we need like especially belting sounds.
Mm-hmm.
But and vowels, of course. That's and for me it's so weird because the game changer for me was when I heard phrase maybe 10 or 15 years ago. I don't quite remember where, but it was like master your vowels and you're gonna master your voice. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, wait a second, that's something really weird. And I was like, days spending with this idea, and it was it like one of the most specific things in my life, not only in vocal life, like completely, which I
Mm-hmm.
remember. And I was like, 100% open vowels, back covered valves, closed valve. There are tuning everything. And in my method, I have this like a triangle. And imagine like right here, you have the compression setting. You can compress differently. Like this, and again, like this with intertenoid, without more like LCA and stuff like that. That's
Mm-hmm.
one. Another thing, that's the resonance. Where do you feel this? Okay, sympathetic vibration, letting the resonance shift or holding the resonance more. And third, that's vowels. And when you're changing only one, the
Mm-hmm.
two are changing. For
Yeah.
example, if you're covering the vowel, you're covering the vowel already. You are setting the compression. You are deeper. So when you're covering more space, more chestier resonance, more stronger the compression. When you're open, yeah, like already the different type of compression, the different CTTA ratio, and the resonance is completely different, and the placement is completely. So
It's a
I think
nonlinear system. If you change one thing and you don't compensate for it in another space consciously, those things will unconsciously do the job. Yeah, yeah.
exactly, yeah. So I think that those problems were, first of all, uh that's the speech. I'm not talking about SLS, I'm talking about speech like approach, just to take this let's say primitive speech like not exotic type of phonation up high, increasing the volume without the compression. That's the first thing. And you just beginning to push more air, like 15 minutes, and you just can't compress starting from the middle part of the voice. You can thin out and stretch because the edges of the folds are gone.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, it's like, no, I was too loud. No, you were not too loud. You were not compressed. At least there is no stretch. You were just opening
Mm-hmm.
the folds. And another thing, again, about this loud sound and loud phonation, the same thing is with compression.
Mm-hmm.
Compression is not the squeeze, but a lot of the times those more gently sounding people, they are like, when you're trying to make slightly stronger compression, they're thinking that they are gonna squeeze,
Mm-hmm.
and they're always trying to be lighter, but lighter, it's not, again, the uncompressed
Yeah,
abducted
yeah, yeah, yeah,
sound.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like a lot of the times we'll throw together like phonation type and registration. I know registration in itself is not a
That's the
super
next,
clear
by the
term.
way, the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
registration
yeah,
and
yeah,
your
yeah.
point of view on
But
that.
like,
Yeah,
how chesty or heady are we? Mean many, many different things to many different people. If we think in terms of M1, M2, or modal falsetto, um,
yeah,
like that doesn't say how uh breathy or flowy or squeezed or pressed, or the how
yeah, yeah,
exactly the adduction is. And that's only two aspects of it. We could go much
yeah,
further, and
for sure.
it's just a bit tricky. And then very often when people overthink these, they land in analysis paralysis. um what I like them to do in that case, or in general, what I do a lot with my students is just go back to primal sounds. So yelling,
Mm-hmm,
it doesn't have to be aggressive yelling. Could be friendly calling, hey, nice to see you, right?
mm-hmm,
Could be desperate calling, hey. Could be angry, hey, right? And we get
mm-hmm.
different variations of the same call. But interestingly, we did not think too much about well, on the press to breathy spectrum, where am I? We can analyze that afterwards, after we've done it successfully, right? And
So
then we
these
can
are
try to apply
primitives.
it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's like built in your DNA. That's why
Mm.
Belton is more, from the one hand, is primitive because from the old days, people were yelling,
Mhm.
so you kinda can put it out from the person with loud volume, and then calibrate with more open vowels,
Mhm.
like raised tongue and stuff like that, without like putting in a back position. And another thing, again, it's like off top a bit, but anyway, those conflicts, remember this triangle, it feels like all these modes and stuff like that, you have these, you're building these circumstances for a specific type of sound. You have this package, and for example, like for the belting, the most important things are like, you should be loud. Like that's 100%. You should be loud. You should be compressed with a lot of TA activity and internodenoid muscle activity. You should have usually raised dorsum and root of the tongue, damp soft palate, even with open nasal port super low for the super high part of the voice, um, bite, more horizontal embouchure, blah 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 blah. And like
Mhm.
if you have those like 10 specific things in your package, it's much easier than if you have 9. It's still cool, but it can
Mhm.
be with less effort. But if you have
It's
5, you
yeah,
kinda
sure,
can
sure.
do it, but it's really strainy.
Yeah, it's like, can you belt with a low larynx? Sure, but can you belt as high? Can you
Exactly.
belt with an open nose? Sure, but will it be as powerful? It's like at some point it becomes a philosophical question um where does belting end and where does whatever else, mixed voice or shouting or like even just lower range chest voice, from which pitch on am I belting? It's like eh, and then it really becomes a matter of context where I really like this German phrase, and I'm thinking of how to translate it. But we have this group of German pedagogues where we had
Hmm.
this discussion: what exactly is belting? Because, like in Estro, they have this very specific idea where you
Yeah,
need to have
yeah.
a lot of this and you need to have this specific kind of anchoring too, and blah blah. Blah. I'm like, no, I don't really anchor when I belt, even for my high stuff. I'm like,
Yep. Hmm.
and then in CVT, they used to have the word belting, but now they have overdrive and edge, and that's
And
like
that,
two
yeah.
versions. One is the call like, the other one is the nasty one, and they
Yeah, yeah,
already
yeah.
differ a bit. So we had this debate, and this is probably the least scientific way of saying it, but for me the most clear way. And I'm trying to um, translate it, which is probably not going to be easy, but like the word in German is ballern. And actually, let me just put it into translator and we'll see
It's
what it gives us.
interesting.
Probably
And I
just
think
gives us the word belt, but
that's
um,
really cool because in this conversation, I think the most important things are when we are trying to clarify specifically what something is,
yeah,
like less esoterically and more precisely, like a nerd.
yeah. So Google gives me a couple of synonyms. Shooting, firing, slamming, banging.
Hmm.
Basically, those are all high energy words. I think the word belting is one of these. Like she's really belting it out there.
Hmm.
That basically means the same thing. It it means that in a certain context, this is the high energy thing um, that you need to do. And if you are coming from an already high energy place, like if you're coming from this kind of legit musical theater, um, uh, this is the moment, this kind of thing, a belt will be very specifically an open vowel.
Hmm.
Because you already have high energy on the closed vowels, so in order to stand out, it needs to be
Yeah, yeah,
whoa, it needs to be that, and maybe even get rid of the vibrato, which makes it more belty, right?
yeah,
There's
yeah, yeah.
a more style specific
The
idea
straight
of
one.
belt.
Yeah. Hmm.
Uh, whereas if you are Ariana Grande, and a lot of people would argue that Ariana Grande does never belt at all, but I would say that if your overall home base is this kind of thing, and then you have a slightly chestier mix, na na na
Hmm.
na, something like this, I wouldn't really call it a belt in most cases. But if I'm working with a singer, they're like, I want to learn belting. My favorite singer is Ariana Grande. Then the
Yeah,
thing that we're doing is we're working on the thickest possible mix that they can get out of that setting.
I
We're not
understand.
actually going from yeah to we're not
I
doing that.
understand. Okay.
But
Okay.
that's a more philosophical kind of thing because when I make a belting workshop, I of course I teach that belting has thick vocal folds or like full vibration, and
Yeah.
we tend to have open vowels, and then basically we play with it. And we're like, if I take this away, if I take this away, you have this list of 10 things. If it's only 6 or 7 of them left, am I still belting? And then what I find much more interesting than answering the question is the debates that happen with all of the workshop participants, because they really start thinking about what their own perception of belting is, and they notice, oh, we all use the same word, but we don't mean the same thing. This could happen
Exactly.
this could happen tomorrow in the lesson with my other teacher. Maybe I
Yeah,
actually should start asking people what they mean. I should start asking them to demonstrate. I should just talk with them,
e-
right? Yeah.
exactly. That's the navigation, and the same thing. Just a couple of words about this: the like head voice versus falsetto.
Yeah.
Some like, for example, CVT. That's the same. Yeah,
Yeah.
falsetto. Even here. For somebody's, this is falsetto. This is head because it's
Yeah, yeah,
slightly
yeah.
more.
Yeah. Breathy
And
or not. Yeah.
exactly. But every single masterclass, I have one question for everybody. The same. For example, what's that? Hello. Like head voice follow. Okay, what this? Hello. Okay, this head voice and that. Hello.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's really interesting. Like that's head voice, and I'm like, hold on a second. I'm compressing the same as here. The compression saying I feel this. Let's say hold doesn't matter. Click whatever it takes, and they're like, that's okay. That's chest voice. I'm like, but it's resonating within my head cavity.
Yeah, and you could do it
Head
three times
voice.
as loud. And would that be more chesty chest? Or it's like, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I
the
love
answer
these kinds
is
of
and head voice. I yes, because it's resonance, but it's chest voice because it's the same kind of vibratory pattern. So it's like chest voice resonates in head, and like, but when you're thinking
voce piena
M1,
in testa.
yeah,
These are old ideas. Yeah, 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 yeah. I I I like for people to be super confused, and then if they're super confused, I offer them my structure, which is just one possible structure. I'm not trying to confuse them so I can manipulate them into my system. But it's like I have been confused just like all of my workshop participants too. And this is what I've come up with, or what has made most sense to me. Those are not new ideas usually. Like, sometimes I speak about chest mix head, sometimes modal falsetto, and like thicker and thinner, blah blah blah. Um, Interestingly, the laryngeal vibratory mechanism terminology I used to use a lot, until we actually started working with one of the authors of the laryngeal vibratory mechanism study, Dr. Nathalie Henrich.
Mhm, mhm.
We're writing up a couple of papers now on fry stream and hybrid and blah blah blah. And
Cool.
it's interesting that she says, well, we cannot hear whether someone is an M1 or M2 because M1 and M2 are things that we measure. So even if we
Mhm.
hear someone is a chesty, someone is a modal voice, I know, I would bet money that they're with thick vocal folds. We cannot just say that. That's a very scientific way of thinking about it because I'm like, yeah, sure we can. I know what this is gonna look like on EGG, but it's interesting that apparently these categories were not really uh, supposed to be used in pedagogical context, and just the fact that they're being used so much tells us how bad all the other terms are, because
Yeah,
but
yeah.
people are desperate for a good system, right? And so what I do most of the time is I present different terminologies and different um, classifications, and then we layer them on top and we see what
Okay.
overlaps. Does chest voice mean the same as modal voice? Well, chest voice has more of a sympathetic vibration implication, unless we say, oh no, it's not about that, we just call it that. It might have more of a stylistic implication, where in classical chest voice is not a, but it's that, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Um, in uh, rock music, if we just have a clean sound like that, people will actually tend to not find it chesty enough. They like
Yeah,
some
yeah, yeah.
distortion on top. And I'm like,
Yes, yeah.
what does distortion have to do with chest voice? But we just see it's like a different thing depending on who you ask. And so that's where I think the the most potential, like big brain the most potential big brain uh catalyst is not so much in I have found the right answer and it's that, just remember that and you're safe. No, you'll meet a new singer, new colleague, new teacher tomorrow, and you'll have the same debate again.
Yeah.
I think what we have to learn is to speak several languages to be empathetic with other singers. Of course, this only works if both sides are interested in that kind of dialogue. But yeah, I think a lot of the debates that we have in vocal pedagogy could be avoided if the wording was slightly less absolute.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's something interesting happen on German vocal pedagogy Instagram at the moment. A German teacher has put out a reel where she says register is not controlled by the muscles here, it's controlled by your jaw opening. And she's like, small opening head voice, medium opening mixed voice, large opening chest voice. And of course, everyone in the comments is like, um,
But something interesting because you're creating more space within the mouth cavity. The less the mouth is open, the more the resin is shifting into the
yeah,
pharynx and head
you're
cavity.
changing the acoustics, and that can have
Exactly.
effects on the vocal folds.
Yep.
And to
Yep.
me, the only problem about this reel is the wording. If she said you can actually influence your registration with your mouth opening just as much as you can with your tongue shape, just as much as you can with your
Yeah.
larynx
Like
position,
all
just as
those
much as you can
stuff.
with your
Yeah.
muscles,
Yep.
that would be great because I don't think a lot of content gets made about the nonlinear relationship between vocal tract and vocal folds. I love that, but the fact that she was like, I have the next holy grail. At least that's the impression we get. Of course, that triggered
Okay.
a lot of this, and
Understand. Okay.
I think this is probably another um, of those problems that are specific to the mechanisms of social media. I don't want to hate on social media because I use a lot, and it's basically what allows me to work as a vocal teacher all the time. But what I see is that a lot of great colleagues apparently feel the need to put out a lot of content very quickly. It's not supposed to go in depth. It's not supposed to be too long. Or if it's long, then not because you fill it with more content, but because
Yeah. Yeah.
and
And
it's
be
like,
more as an entertaining thing rather
yeah.
than specifically theme and
And
subject.
entertainment is great, but it's like sometimes I have the feeling this video has not been made because there's something important that
Yep.
we wanted
Yep.
to say, but because you had to make a video today,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
also you didn't want the video to be too nerdy, or you didn't want the video to be a new topic because you found that the last topic worked so well. Now you need to repeat it and repeat it.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
see this, and I think that if those mechanisms work differently, we would have a very different teaching landscape. But and then I think a lot of these conflicts between methods and teachers and even singers are fighting each other for some fucking reason. I think a lot of these conflicts can be resolved if we take a step back and think, okay, I think a lot of this is actually happening because of the context. Like, this method uses different terminology because they have a different history. This teacher is putting out oversimplified information because they try to cater to the algorithm, and they're probably
Yeah.
not as stupid
Yeah.
as you think.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I this is why I love talking to other teachers. Like, what we're doing right now. I've had lots of great conversations, and continue to do so. And I actually I spend a lot of time actually, just networking with people. Like,
That's
it's
really
kind of
cool.
unpaid work, but
Y-
it's so important, and I wouldn't want to stop it. So I'm very grateful. I have the time and financial stability to just half of my time talk.
Because I think you're doing this not only for money. Like that's the like how do you feel and that's what you love and that's
Sure,
really
sure,
important.
sure. No, no, I'm not doing it for money at all. I'm glad that uh, as a voice teacher, you can make a living, and maybe even more realistically make a living than as a singer, which is quite absurd to me.
Especially
Um,
nowadays. Yeah, it's
sure,
like
but
and
yeah.
let's back a
it's
bit.
great.
We were talking about this head voice and falsetto problem, and about the belting. Let's clarify this again. And for me, it's always important because a lot of the times belting refers to using your, let's say, chest voice in the upper part, let's say
Mhm.
starting from the mid and high mid part of the voice, or when you're passing the first passage or stuff like that. But actually, for me, it's different. For example, if you have this A4, like if I'm gonna be, let's say, Chester with this kind of like this sound, it's
Mhm.
not the same as like, you know what I mean.
Sure.
So for me, it's not only about using chest voice in the upper part, it's about how we are tuning the vocal tract, and about harmonics and frequencies, like F1 H2 and
Yeah, 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 yeah,
F2
yeah, yeah.
H1. So for me, Belton is more about this thing, like
Yeah, yeah,
bright, brassy, formant one definitely, and the second harmonic, which is bright. So I'm not associate belting with darker sound color.
yes, yes, yes,
We
yes.
can, but it's
Definitely.
more kind of Broadway bright,
Yeah,
front placed, straight sound
yeah,
rather than dark rounded. But a
sure.
lot
And
of the
and if
times,
you like, if you watch some of the social media reels that I share from belting workshops, you'll see and hear a lot of I love exactly that. Um, but it's quite interesting if 1 out of 10 singers brings a song or comes with a certain habit where suddenly you get a much darker sound or you get a
mhm,
very thick and impactful sound that is not yell timbre F1H2
mhm,
tuning. Uh, that's like the moments where I'm like, I'm glad I didn't say today that belting needs to be this thing because then that person comes to my workshop and I'm like, okay, no, you're not belting, not today's topic. It's not what I'm doing. It's like, okay, how can we make this one powerful, or how can we? It's already powerful. How can we make it more bright? How can we actually leave it like this but adjust all the rest so that we give it a good context.
uh huh,
um and I think that's also potentially liberating to singers because sometimes we're very very focused on one specific sound. I want to sound like Chester Bennington and I want to put me out of my fucking misery. Exactly the
mhm,
right amount of atonality in the sound, and it needs to be specifically this blah blah. Blah. It's like no, learn to fucking scream in whatever technique you like. I don't actually do the Chester Bennington technique in my cover because I'm too bad at it. I practice it and I teach it all the time. But if I make a cover, I'm going to use the Valsalva technique because that's what I've
mhm,
done for
mhm.
15, 16 years.
Yeah, yeah,
And probably you could even do some kind of pitch false chord scream, or you could do just false fault distortion, or maybe, there's another possibility that I'm not even aware of, where what matters is not so much if you do it exactly the same way, or even if it sounds exactly the same way. What matters is the big picture. Like, how does your scream relate to your belt? How does your belt relate to your softer singing? How does and so on? And it's like singers get so much less frustrated if they find out that the sounds they can make at the moment, even if they're not finished, can be used already. You can
understand.
you can go on stage right now and sing tricky music if you're aware that it does not have to sound exactly like the original. If you want to sound like the original, we're going to go there, but that does not mean you cannot go on stage or sing for other people for the next 6 years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And another interesting thing, you don't just think like we have training sounds and they are awkward,
Yeah.
disgusting, like that's completely piece of shit, and like art singing sounds.
Yeah.
And those sounds are only for calibration, navigation only. And when you're trying to sometimes to do those sounds, there are students who are like, I'm not gonna use this. Especially,
Yeah.
for example, if somebody's gonna like
Yeah, yeah,
that,
sure.
I'm gonna say. So we are trying to, kind of raise the larynx.
The
You're like,
exact
I'm
opposite.
not
Yes,
gonna
yes,
time.
yes.
I'm not a country singer. But he's like,
Yeah.
I'm not a guy. Can I sing higher with this then? And I'm like, you can, but we need to do some certain things.
Yes.
And
I always explain it like the pendulum. Your pendulum is stuck here. We want it to swing like this, so then eventually it can
yeah, yeah.
hit the sweet spot in the middle. And usually people understand that, but I totally get why people would not want to do something that they hear and they're like, I don't want to sound like that. So I think it's our duty as teachers to convince people that I know you want this sound. We're gonna get this sound. This is the fastest way. It might seem to you like we're going somewhere else. This is the fastest way. Trust me, or maybe don't trust me. Try something else. Come back to me when you found out it
And
works
again,
the
you know
best.
what?
Yeah.
You were talking about this versatile approach, and that's really
Yes.
cool because guys like us, we can demonstrate a really fast, quick way from kind of they sound to more normal, and then you have the sound what you
Mm-hmm.
need, rather than just do it because like you need to do it. Like I
Yeah.
have this book and it says you should do this. I don't know why, but it's gonna
Yes.
work. You can
Repeat
like
this exercise 5,000 times and it's gonna improve. Yes.
another really fast thing about that's an interesting thing about vestibular or ventricular or false vocal folds. We're always referring them as a distorted adjustment. In a distorted singing, raspy, gritty, screamy sound. However, not everybody is talking about incorporating vestibular folds in a clean singing in a really compressed metal.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and that's really interesting because that's why I call this like a medium mode when you have this internode muscle activity and you have kind of it's almost a click hold. Oh, you have this rather hey like released, and from there that's the one of the quickest way to add the grid. A bit more. And you have this thing,
Yeah.
but right before somebody is gonna talk like, okay, now you have no vestibular fold, and now you're adding, but it's not
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Already here you
Yeah. Yeah.
have
It's like almost distortion. Yeah.
exactly. And from the one hand, you have this action from vestibular folds, and from the other, this thing like vestibular folds constriction when somebody is, let's say, like over holding back, like they are
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
over holding.
That's what I call the pressing kind of thing. Yeah,
Okay,
it's
that
quite
yeah.
interesting. In Estel, they have this idea of mid or relaxed false vocal folds, like the default speech voice, which we know everybody speaks differently, and it depends on
Hmm.
culture and blah blah blah. But like, they think of this as, kind of this shaping.
And
Um,
laughing concept too, like
yeah, and they have this
yeah,
idea of being able to retract the false folds.
yeah,
Now,
yeah.
whether we can actually muscularly do that or not, there's this debate, and I believe we cannot. Or if we see retraction of the false folds, we're actually doing a lot more. But it's interesting that they believe that the most open position is the safest position, because now I'm gonna refer back to Dr. Nathalie Henrich, who we're working with at the moment. She and some colleagues of her have researched a lot on the role of the ventricular folds in clean singing.
Cool.
And they found out that actually a tiny bit of narrowing is the sweet spot for the most efficient singing. Not even the pressed quality, which it can be used, of
Hmm.
course, but efficiency in the sense of the most bang for your bucks, the least amount of effort for phonation itself, so lower phonation threshold pressure. You
Okay.
get with a slight narrowing, and you don't even feel it as a narrowing. It's probably, it's just this. Free belting. If you look inside, you will see slightly narrowed false vocal folds. Whether this would be the mid position in nasal or whether they would refer to that as constricted doesn't really matter because the feeling is very, very different um from
Yep.
what we associate with false folds. So sometimes it's quite interesting that we'll talk about anatomical or even like muscular adjustments when we cannot really measure them. It's like I'm very hesitant to, for example, mention the TA muscles, and the whole TA dominance versus CT dominance thing.
Mhm.
As far as we know, in very high energy belting, we have a lot of TA and a lot of CT.
What?
And now,
Yes, and don't forget about this because
yeah,
that's another thing. Yeah, the
but
ratio,
the
always the
interesting thing
ratio.
is we don't really do these like EMG like needle into your muscle
Yeah, yeah.
research context anymore because well we don't want to poke needles into a healthy singer's muscles. So the only data we have now is either from people with voice disorders or older research that didn't have the same questions as we have now. And it's like one thing I know is that TA versus T dominance, the way a lot of people propagate it, is not real. However, I don't really know what a better concept would be because, of course, I could judge from the database we have now, but I would feel like a bullshitter because it's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
I
understand.
haven't actually measured what I do. Maybe I'm doing it differently. Maybe I think I'm doing the same as you because we sound similar, but even looking at different endoscopies of people, we all have different epiglottis shapes, and we have
Sure.
different strategies to twang and to go chesty. One of my students has a super like flat but very very like big epiglottis. So in order to have
Mm-hmm.
short and thick vocal folds, in order to bring M1 high, there's always some narrowing automatically because of the shaping.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
when I
yeah.
demonstrate "hey" to him, he
Mm-hmm.
imitates "hey." He's doing the same thing muscularly. It's just the shaping is different. And this is where I often like to say anatomy and the genetically being predisposed to sing in the bass baritone range. And so I'm not a fan of these deterministic ideas, but
Either.
we should not forget that we are as different from the inside as we are on the outside. So
Yeah,
it gets
yeah.
really, really hard to make assumptions over what exactly is happening, how it's looking, if we cannot look inside. Yeah.
And yeah, and that's a really cool topic about TA and CD. I'm not thinking about like that's TA CD. It's always the ratio, always. And the biggest problem with the Belgian going higher when somebody is just stuck in, it's when the folds are not stretching. That's been said there is no CT. So you just stuck around F and like you can go higher because
Sure.
that's the ratio in between like tilt, stretching, and like let's call mass or you can call
Mm-hmm.
it whatever you want. So that's a really important thing that's always ratios, especially when you're singing high. And another thing was about hold on a second, we were talking about CTA vibratory pattern. Vestibular folds in a clean singing. Yeah, and you were talking about narrowing. And I remember on Facebook you post about how much we need, even let's say contracting, let's be true,
Mm-hmm.
in order to create a powerful, healthy sound in the upper part. And that's another
Was that
problem.
the study that I
Yeah, yeah,
shared?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, that was controversial.
But it's true. Like when I'm singing super powerful in the upper part, it feels like I'm narrowing like a lot, really hard. Like I'm so narrowed in the upper, like, and also about the tongue. That's really interesting thing because I clearly feel I don't like twang term, but
Mhm.
I know what you're talking about twang, and
There's 10 different
I
kinds of
was
twang.
yeah, exactly. I don't like usually, you know what, when twang is always with the nasality combination,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
and
we wanna separate them. Yeah. Yeah.
that's why I'm calling this thing like the about the vocal folds compression. That's the quack, and like that's the input and output. You can be oral, you can be using your nasal pharynx with open nasal port. You can be head like whatever you want. You can output it there, but it's all about the narrowing the upper part of the larynx, the laryngeal inlet, like when you're going out from the larynx. And it has to do with the epiglottis, and at first I found this by manipulating with the tongue. A lot of the and this digrastic muscle, by the way, because a lot of the SLS guys, they are like no action here,
Yeah.
relaxed tongue, but it was completely different because when I was singing starting from like G sharp A and like G sharp A5, I clearly felt this is working, the digrastic muscle,
Yes.
and the tongue is working.
I think of these things as tricks that help making stuff easier. And if we waste those tricks too early in the range, like if we start tightening here
Okay.
or doing a lot of
Mm-hmm.
this in the middle range, then we tell our body that this is already the extreme range. Like if we do
Okay.
something that we reserve for the extreme range in the middle range, that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So a lot of the
Okay.
times, I'm a big fan of opening the mouth more for belting. Like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
obviously that works. That's a very effective way of raising the foreman and so on.
Sure.
But if we overdo it, that means we reach a ceiling of I cannot
Yep.
open any further earlier than we need to. When maybe we could
Yes.
have a more distributed strategy of like a bit of this, a bit of larynx rising, a bit of extra twang, maybe something else, the tongue, and so on. And so when people have this habit of always doing this,
Mm-hmm.
I teach them like an SLS teacher would teach them. When people have this habit of never opening the mouth, I have them put their hand here and like, oh,
Yeah.
and
Like
like,
or three fingers at least.
and like you could just randomly peek into one of my lessons, and probably I would do something crazy depending on what what the student habits are. And like I think if speech level people watched half of my lessons, they'd be like, Tony's teaching them to yell like crazy and to pull chest. And you could have the opposite situation with people that are very much against like the old school classical chest release
Mm-hmm.
folks. They would be like, he's a modern nay 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 teacher. He teaches quick fixes, and like, fuck you. I'm trying to help students, and I'm successful in doing that. And it
Cool.
looks different every time because every student has different problems. They they are similar. If you see 100 students, 20 of them have a similar problem, but still it's never exactly the same, and the exercises are never the same. Sometimes it's sometimes it's yeah because they need a smooth onset.
Yep.
Sometimes
Yeah.
it's way because they don't want too high of a tongue, and the yeah encourages a high tongue. And it's like sometimes we don't do actually the hey because they have pitch matching problems, so we just do
Uh-huh.
hey. And it's like those are not all like different exercises. They have one goal, but they're
From different
adjusted
sides.
individually to
Yeah.
the student
Yeah.
and the situation of the day and whatever my brain comes up with, right? So it's
Yep.
like I think teachers who always teach the same, or teachers who are very much opposed to one specific way of teaching, um might not be as effective.
Yeah. 100%. Because you have
Okay.
like point A, where you are kind of like this.
Yeah,
You have point B where you yeah.
yeah.
But to go from A to B, you know what I mean? It's always like going from A to A1 stuck in here. Okay, now let's try now. No, no. Whoa, here is okay. But if you're going only like
Yeah.
that, that's the same problem with all those programs, audio programs and courses when you have like, for example, A1, A2, A3. But if you're stuck in with A2, you're not able to go into A3 because you should have this type of compression to go higher and
Mhm.
like 3, 4, 5 years you're gonna do this, so it's not gonna work. Okay, really fast. Larynx position. Yeah, we were talking about this hold back release. We were talking about this Valsalva and hold back thing. Constriction tension narrowing. We were talking about that tongue tension. Okay, and about the tongue tension, I was saying about the tongue is doing something for the
Always,
quacky thing.
always.
Yeah, but sometimes I'm asking somebody to make a dead tongue, because this thing root of the tongue pressing down and you just stucking,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and the only way is to like make the tongue completely, like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes, not sometimes, a lot of the times, the problems with the compression, I mean the vocal folds compression, they are trying to compress with it. They are thinking that they are compressing, but what they are doing, they're just pressing the root of the tongue down.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the only way is to like make the tongue dead, and then you're like, okay, I can do somewhere else, not with the tongue,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
intrinsically
I
here.
had this 2 hours ago. Somebody really relied on tongue um for adduction. So as soon as the vowel changed, the adduction went away. We're like,
Uh-huh.
ah. It's like,
Okay.
okay, let's stick the tongue out and see if we can actually close the vocal folds without the tongue. And then we get this domino effect of things. Oh, the reason you cannot close the vocal folds alone is that there's a problem with the way you create pressure or whatever. And then suddenly we're working on posture. And it's like, we started out with the tongue, and now we're worried about how
Always
you
like that.
stand.
Yeah, yeah,
um,
always like that.
yeah. I
Um,
think that the tongue is maybe the most interesting part of the vocal tract in terms of mechanics. I mean, the vocal tract as a
yeah.
whole is always responsible for acoustics. So I don't really think of parts of the vocal tract as like this one is responsible for the sound or anything. But even just comparing the different kind of knödels, like the um
Mm-hmm.
I give the numbers because I'm trying to be diplomatic. It's like the real one is the knödel one is the Kermit voice. I am beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people uh mishear other things as that one. Like they hear a dark or swallowed quality and they assume it's that one, but actually what we see with the Kermit voice is the larynx goes higher.
100. Yeah,
Yes, 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 yes.
like a pre-jazz girl position. Hey, 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 and then you have this like
Yeah, then you have to do
epiglottis
Armstrong.
with the retinoid section. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And then sometimes when I try to teach this, because in my rough vocal effects workshops, I'm like, blues growl is for some people the easiest effect, and for some people the hardest. The people who can already
Agree.
do
Yeah.
that, they just put a bit more airflow. Finished.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
people who kind of do this, like if I give them some cues about try to swallow your tongue, and they end up doing this here, which is what I call the knödel 2, the stitch or meat what
Mm-hmm.
voice or whatever, right? It's totally different shaping, but it has an aspect of retraction.
But hold on a
And it's
second.
like,
Three pharyngeal constrictors. It's like one.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Kind of different thing. Like
Yeah, it's about is the narrowing higher or lower, but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think it's even more complicated than that because you could actually combine the Kermit and the Stitch,
Uh huh.
and then it's really tricky because I'm like, you do have the Kermit and you're looking for the Kermit, but you have the Stitch. So as sad as it is, for your brain right now, those two belong together. So we need to just forget about it and start new. And it's like you're
Okay.
so fucking close, but the top of your tongue is doing this, and it's like it's so hard to control various parts of the tongue in isolation.
Yep.
Unless maybe you've practiced overtone singing, where then suddenly you move your
Yeah,
tongue
yeah,
root
yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
isolation.
Yeah.
But it's like this can be a very frustrating journey when people are looking for blues growl. Um, but that's the two, and then we have the Knödel 3, which is the dopey voice, or I say Patrick in order to give it a cartoon
Mhm.
figure name. It's like, "Ah." And then people say, well, famous classical tenor Jonas Kaufmann sounds like Kermit the Frog, and I'm like, no, he doesn't. He's very dark, and you can call it swallowed or unintelligible or whatever. But look at his larynx. You can see that he's not doing Kermit voice. He's
Mhm.
doing the yawny dopey kind of thing, and then maybe
Yep.
some Jarl stuff with the tongue tip,
Mhm. Mhm, mhm,
overtone
mhm.
like almost.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and this is like, let's be a bit more specific. I know we hate all of those swallowed sounds. We hate the Kermit, and we hate the Stitch, and we hate the. But actually, let's start to love them so we can understand them more and get rid of them if we don't want them. And I love all these
Yeah.
sounds. I play so much with them.
Yeah, cool. Because that's the versatile of the human voice, and again, it's all about the ratio. If you're gonna talk like this, for example, it's okay. Then like this, but if you're gonna do it, like it's too
Yeah,
much. So it's always like, for example, with the distortions, the same thing. You can but right here it's too much.
sure,
You
sure.
can't phonate. So it's always somewhere in the middle of like letting everything go, and we again like the most problems like here and here. Like when you're getting hoarse, you're just forcing the air through the folds. But when it's tense, like you have too much physical action,
Hmm.
over squeezing. Yeah, like you know what I mean. So it's
Yeah,
it's here, and that's your calibration, especially for all
yeah.
those. I don't like extreme vocal effects. I call this extreme vocal effects because all out there call this and the same. I don't
Yeah,
like
people love
without
to call it extreme. It's like
yeah,
I'm doing my workshop on and people are like, these are the extremes of singing. It's like
especially like you're
so
extreme
fucking
high.
extreme. It's like
Exactly. And but again, like that's your calibration when you're starting out with vestibular folds, and even the fry scream is starting from the creaking thing and trying to compress them.
sure.
Like if it's uncomfortable, it's two things only: or too much air going through the folds,
Hmm.
or too much squeeze. So you're always
Yeah, those
like
are
ding
those are the
ding
most
ding.
common ones. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think one way we could probably summarize this because it was funny when you scrolled through your list. We've done that. We've done that. We've done that. All of the conclusions were always um like it depends basically. Like there's not the wrong or right way for all kinds of singing. It's more like find as many sweet spots as possible,
Yep.
and you'll know that they are sweet spots by the surprisingly low amount of effort that you're putting in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's like when I talk about my Valsalva thing, people are like, no, that cannot be efficient. It's so much effort. I'm like, no, but I can do that for hours. And I actually remember that I used to describe it to students as like, this is 4 times the amount of support. I'm like, what did I even think what support meant? Right now, I don't know. Um, I can sustain that one for 20 seconds up there. And if you measured it, you would probably find short and thick vocal folds. It's not very loud, but
Hmm,
it
hmm.
depending on what you call chest voice, yeah, you could argue it's less uh effortful than a more released chest voice. And it's like, what if we start thinking about what's the best one? What's the like these are problems, this is helpful. What if it's less black and white and more about, okay, what's the easiest way to sing with super squeezed vocal folds? What's the easiest way to sing with open vocal folds? You're going to find that breathiness will not work well if you try to do it very loudly. You're going to find that
Yep.
the squeeze will
Yeah.
not work well if you look for a lot of warmth in your sound. And it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
how can we make all of them as little tiring as possible? And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
suddenly we find that we're versatile singers.
And the same with belting. It's always like that. Like one student of mine, he was like always, trying not to go into this area of super not intense physically, but intense volume wise sound.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, it's okay, bro, but my larynx, like, it's great, but my subpalate is damped, it's amazing, but I'm
Mm.
super extremely loud. I'm like, bro,
Yeah.
you're there already, finally. And he was like, bam bam, and he was like, for me to sing like, hey, it's much easier than one for the same with me.
Yeah.
I'm less working with it when I'm like straightforward,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
but rather when I'm trying to hold back, like
Yeah.
finding this. And it's always like that. That's why it's really weird why this super loud belty sounds
Mm.
are, like a red zone. Don't go there. No, 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 no. It feels like that's the truth, and all the time, like, don't go there. Like, go here.
Mhm.
So, and the same with extreme vocal effects when you are much more relaxed in order to be like phonating correctly, and the more brutal you are when you have this isolation rather than you're squeezing and you're like have this stupid like a cat sound.
Mhm.
Yeah. Bro, thanks a lot for your time. It was really cool to talk like this.
Yeah, we could
um
continue for hours.
yeah, it's always like that.
Yeah.
So cool. I don't even think I'm gonna edit this because it's like one
Yeah.
straight
Yeah. Yeah.
video. I'm gonna post it and tag you, and yeah. I hope I'll be able to come to Germany because now it's really fucking weird here in
Yeah.
Ukraine. We need to have this permission. That's why all my master classes are like stopped around Europe. But I hope I'm gonna solve this problem. And if I'm gonna be in Germany, we're gonna take some tea.
Yeah.
Cool.
Great.
Have a nice day,
See
brother.
you.
Stay in
You
touch.
too.
Bye
Bye.
bye. See ya.